Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar. I am Adi from the Panax team, and I'm very excited to moderate today's conversation about what exactly is happening inside finance and treasury teams right now, which skills are rising in value, which ones are disappearing, and what you and your team can do about it today. Before we jump in, just a few quick housekeeping rules. This session is recorded. You will receive your recording in email later on. We have prepared a few questions for an open discussion, but feel free to leave more questions in the chat, and either we get to them today or the Panax team will be in touch about them after we wrap it up. We are keeping this session tight and concise, about 40 minutes, so we have a lot to dive into. This is our agenda for today. We're going to talk to our speakers, Pieter and Eyal. Pieter will guide us through the treasury talent landscape today, what is changing. Eyal will share his insights for what does an AI-ready team look like. And then we'll open it up to discussion. How do we close the skill gap? And we're not going to let you go without practical takeaways you can take to action today. And of course, to answer all your questions in the end. Okay, enough with me. Let's get to the interesting people in this conversation. Pieter, how about you tell us a little about your background and what brings you to this conversation today?
Hi, I'm Pieter. Thank you for having me in this session. Always have been a recruiter. Already in the previous millennium, liked the job of corporate treasury a lot, to recruit in, not to work in. So when starting my own company in 2009, I decided to only focus on that field. And now we have a team of 12 focusing on corporate treasury, second career step up to group treasurer level, permanent and interim. And I think that's in a nutshell what we are and who we are and who I am.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you again for joining us today. Eyal, why don't you tell our viewers a little about your background and what you do here at Panax?
So, hey everyone. So I started my career at EY. I spent there just more than 5 years. Then I moved into the fintech world where I built operations team, support, and customer success. And in the past 18 months, I'm leading the customer success here at Panax. I work hands-on with finance and treasury teams across industries every day.
Nice. Okay, Pieter, let's get into it. From the hiring perspective, just like you mentioned, you've been placing treasury professionals for so many years now. You've seen a lot in the industry and in treasury. What is different about today, about right now with AI?
Yeah. Let me start generally spoken before diving into the AI. Something treasurers do not want to hear, I suppose, but treasury is not a prominent topic for CFOs, for many CFOs. Can talk very long about that, but that also translates into treasury recruitment. One could say that at junior level, because there's hardly any education in regular education on treasury, the inflow of young treasurers is mostly very generic, and treasury is competing with control and with accounting. And at senior level, one could see that you should be able to connect to other functions to win that game. And if you then go into specifically AI or what's happening there, what's changing in recruitment of treasurers, is that something we tend to ignore, but many CFOs are just as clueless on the topic as many others. So there's no long track record, there's no benchmarking, so it doesn't mean that recruitment in corporate treasury is changing super strongly because of AI. Perhaps it should, But it doesn't, because CFOs are also in this search. And I think that connects a bit to what is already longer in the treasury community happening. A lot of people in treasury positions want to have a job or want to have a seat at the table in the boardroom to get more prominent, and this could be their opportunity in my perspective, but they have to step forward because there's also a danger there, and perhaps we'll veer back to that later on. There's a super chance to get that spot at the table, but there's also a big risk because accounting and control are also not sitting still and might move forward quicker. So that's what currently happens in I think recruitment in treasury, and I think all other topics concerning AI and recruitment will go on later on in that. But that's not always as treasury specific as one might expect. I think other functions struggle with the same issues as treasury does.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think resonates with a lot of industries. But do you think when CFOs go to hire today, is AI fluency and literacy something specific that they're looking for, that they're adding into the job description, or is it a nice to have that you pick up on the role?
It is mentioned, but then you come to a topic that is yes, it's mentioned, and traditionally in recruitment one would say, okay, you have to know accounting, so I double check you have a CPA, or you have to know controlling, so you need a CMA at the qualification. Well, that doesn't apply anymore, not for treasury and also not for AI. So even if CFOs or group treasurers say we need AI skills, and somebody says I've got them, there's no objective way to measure, because the people who have to recruit are also clueless, so also think, okay, he knows how to write Claude, or he has a paid account for, I don't know, for Copilot, then he must be good. So it really forces people to think about, okay, how do I make it tangible? And luckily there are enough ways. Use a recruiter who thought about it, or think about, okay, how can I make this measurable? But that's not AI specific, not treasury specific, but you see it in any job description. And to add on that, I do not think we need AI experts. I think we need treasurers who are willing to apply AI. Yeah, if you.
So let me just continue this train of thought. When you are talking to a senior treasurer or to a CFO or anybody who are looking to hire today in this specific environment where AI is taking over, and you are saying yourself they need to be willing to learn and to grow with it, what is the tip that you give to hiring committees for treasury professionals when they look at a candidate? What would make them more suitable and more recruitable, if you will?
Well, first I would ask, what's the current status of AI in your company? Where do you stand? Is there a policy? Did you put some strategizing into that? And then, of course, in recruitment, one says if he or she has done it in the past, he can do it in the future again. So you can see, okay, did somebody have an AI project? But if that's not the case, or not sufficiently measurable, I would say something which is already a bit longer prominent in recruitment is recruitment for agility. Can you describe situations where transitions were being done, when something had to change, when new technology build up, tearing down, what did you do? And also what worked, what didn't work, and people should be able to tell what didn't work and what they did after. So my advice would be, if you want to be strategic on AI, you can expect expectations. So if there's no AI expertise, then at least recruit for change expertise. And that's a mindset more than a skill.
And is that something that you see that have changed or has morphed or has become more prominent in recent years than it was in the past? Because I think to be a successful treasurer, you always needed to be able to ask the questions and where do I bring the numbers and how do I make it all make sense? But do you think that AI enhanced that or maybe took it a step back?
Well, it forces people to think better about it, and they could kind of ignore the topic in the past because they were not punished enough for it. So, in that sense, it's a bit of a negative motivation, but it works. But in general, and I think Eyal will recognize this, the treasury community tends to be quite conservative, risk averse, and not really prone to change. So change makers are few in the corporate treasury community. And while saying this, I understand that I'm not making friends, but that's my personal observation there.
Okay. With all the talk about the treasury community being very, very conservative, that actually is the perfect segue to Eyal to talk about the current landscape. While putting this webinar together, we came across these numbers that while most of treasury teams, 55%, is more than a half, are evaluating use cases for AI or thinking about redesigning their processes, very, very few of them actually successfully deployed it and really managed to see the impact that it brought to their day-to-day life and work. So, yeah, I'll hand this one to you. Where do you see teams struggle today?
Yeah, as you said, I think the gap is real. I see many teams that are willing to adopt AI, but barely succeed. And I think there is a couple of reasons for that. First of all, they're starting to exploring different AI tools, starting to connect it to current workflows, to current Excel processes. And then basically what they receive, maybe just a faster workflow that they did up until today. And then the other thing is, instead of connecting the AI to their entire data sources, as banks, ERPs, sometimes they have constraints where they're not able to connect the AI to all of their data sources. Some IT limitations, they don't have access, and so on. So basically, they receive only a partial picture of the entire treasury workflow. So what are we seeing, basically? Old process runs at a higher speed, right? And then they think the picture they see is the entire picture. But sometimes, as I said, they don't have all the data connected. So basically, they don't have the right input. So they receive a partial input. And they can't act on these numbers, right? Because first thing, you need to layer the foundation of the data for the AI to produce the right input. And this is basically what we do here. We are connected to all of the data sources, all the banks, all the ERPs. We normalize the data. So once we connect the AI, at that moment, you receive the entire picture. The AI produce the right output. They have a better visibility. And then they actually can start acting on numbers and not just producing them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it actually brings us to, you see a lot of finance teams, you work with them every day, and you've seen, the successful process of what the team looks like before AI that is connected to their full financial context and history, and what it looks like after. So what do you analyze and look at this to be the successful picture of a finance team that is ready for AI?
So first of all, I think the treasurer has an issue where they first need to trust the data. The shift that they need to do is hard, right? Because they have a certain process they trust, and now they need to shift into a new process where the AI takes over. So first of all, they need to trust the data they see. Once they trust the data, then the AI handles the data layer 24/7, right? And that's where the treasurer starting the shift entirely. Instead, let's say, of opening Monday morning, asking, okay, what's happened last week? Let me pull the data. Starting to extracting the data from the bank, receiving for my fellow treasurers additional data. And instead of that, they can basically start asking and looking at a live cash position, asking, okay, not what happened last week, instead of what are we doing right now. The numbers are there. Now they need to start asking the right questions. So the second thing, they start think about redesigning their workflow. The mind shift, as we mentioned, and also I think Pieter said that, they need to change their mind. Instead of being the one who produce the numbers, they need to become the ones who become a decision maker. Not only automating the old processes on Excel, as we said, they need to start building a new process and starting asking new questions around what AI can do. Now that we don't have any constraints of the data layer, because now the data is there, is running live 24/7. So I think the new mind shift, I think they need to develop a new skill, which is basically to be less of a operational treasurer and start being a more of leadership financial leader. If the treasurer start asking the questions that he was once asked by the CFO, then he becomes a better partner to the CFO. A better strategist, instead of just operational treasurer trying to produce numbers, asking questions that are not relevant anymore by the time you produce the numbers. With AI, everything is in front of you. You just need to ask the right questions. And that's
but if I may step in, Eyal, you just have to ask the right question. You just have to learn a new skill. My first response to what you're saying there is a lot of treasurers got away with non-strategic work because their fuzzy, unproductive processes were in the way. They got away because they couldn't ask the question because they were busy. I think now the new bottleneck will come up, because what you're asking there of people, you'll always be an operator, now be a strategist. That's something like saying you went to vocational school, now pretend you're an INSEAD or Harvard graduate. That's quite an ask you do there, don't you think so?
Yes. I guess, or I believe, in a day, overnight, not all the treasurer can become a strategic thinker. But with AI, we can save them a lot of time. And what I hear day to day save me from this manual work, from this tedious work, from this labor that I invest into producing the numbers. And now that they have all this free time, what should they do with all of this time, right? So now that they are not bearing in producing the numbers, they're starting to think differently, right? Maybe their dream come true. now they can have answers in minutes instead of hours or days um, on questions before they couldn't have even answers. Like,
Yeah.
and now everything is just in front of them. I
Yeah.
think life will become easier for treasurers, and they will have better answers, faster answers. And I think their job won't be changed, but the description of what they can do and will do will change.
Yeah, the essence of the job indeed doesn't change. It's treasury, so you have to secure liquidity. But how you fill your day is essential, different. The task will be different, but also you must dream, of course, but not for too long. But because if you snooze, you lose, and you will be out. You will be pushed down or away, because others can do this too.
Right. And I think the bottom line is the value that I can produce. So if the treasurer today, the value he brings is, as you say, to secure liquidity. So today he can bring additional value, not only securing the liquidity, but to have a better capital efficiency, better ROI, allocation of funds, how much to put into term deposits, money markets, where I can produce the higher interest rate, and so on. I have many more examples. Or can I make an early repayment for my loan? Yes. Now that you have an AI and you can see your forecast a week ahead, a month ahead, and you can ask it, okay, based on my weekly forecast, do I have enough available cash to repay my early loan so I can save a few $100 for an interest? So now they have a better answers, faster answers, and they will provide for their CFO with a better value and ROI. And I think that's where the change lies with AI.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is to tie you both of your perspectives together, which are very different, and I like that, but they also come together in a way that, Pieter, you did say that the treasury community in the end of the day is a conservative community, and it takes time to adapt to change. But what Eyal is describing here is the end goal in the end of the day, to make that leap and to make that jump and to be a strategic thinker. It doesn't happen overnight. AI allows for these processes to be faster and to be more efficient, but there's definitely room to grow, and for treasurers to start today with one small step that will eventually get them to the strategic position that maybe they're not so used to because they're so busy on the day-to-day of it.
Yeah. Adi, Peter, I think most of the treasurer are strive for that change, and willing to adopt it. And I think the thing that separates from that is just to trust the data. That's the most important thing. Once they have
Yeah,
a trust data, the change will come.
I do agree with you that it's super important, but I think the bottlenecks there will be more bottlenecks to that. But because you also have to think about, as you mentioned, investment working capital management, so that also is an invitation to expand your view. But it's also to have an impact, to be able to take the stage, because you are not invited to the stage, you have to take the stage, and these are aspects of, you mentioned the solution component, the technical component. I think both in the skills, being able to communicate, as the mindset, as, hey, if I won't do it, somebody else will do it. I will go out and get it and not wait for an invitation. That's also part of the process, because you leave any of these out and the whole thing falls apart. If data is crappy, you are really good at a crappy process. If you cannot interpret, no value, because then you can't bring it forward. If you don't tell your story out there, and I think we really need as a treasury community to go out, because we are looking for the solution within our own community, but it's not there. It's elsewhere. It's with procurement. It's with sales. It's with the CFO. So yeah, but okay, I'm passionate about the topic.
No, it's we actually already opened up the discussion here. We have prepared some questions for our discussion to stem from to begin, but I think we've already kind of touched on these, but maybe we can elaborate more. Starting with the beginning, with the bottleneck that you mentioned, maybe Pieter, you can elaborate more on that, on why our teams still behind, because as technology is more available and more accessible and the adaptation begins, the gap also it widens every day for teams who are still behind. So why are they still running on manual processes?
Well, next to the obvious I just mentioned, so the not to being risk takers, I also think we should not forget this is about other people's money. And if you say tools are there and you start willy-nilly implementing all kinds of tooling, I think Eyal will know better than I, but if you at one stage decide that you use, if you only speak LLMs, the diversity there, if you choose all of them, there will be a big mess, and it's money we're talking about. So if you make a mistake in transfers or there's hallucination in your process, so I do think some caution is of course relevant. So I do think that's the main reason that we don't move forward there. So very curious what Eyal has to say about this.
Yeah, so I think, as we both mentioned, I think the main thing is trust. If the data is wrong, then the treasurer will go back immediately into his familiar workflows, into Excel. I think that's the shift, and if there is the right tool to take basically all of your data and turn the input into the right outputs, and the treasurer will be able to trust the data, then we will see the shift into using different tools. And I think this is the reason we are here, to show it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, because AI, you talk about trust, but Pieter, you talk about maybe setting the boundaries with AI implementation and saying these are my guardrails and these are the threshold that I'm not willing to cross. So it's interesting, because I think they kind of go hand in hand in a way, and you need both the trust and the limitations and the clear definition of successful AI implementation to really kick off that process, which leads me to our next question about the gap and actually starting the process. Where is it coming from? We talked about the why. Now we're talking about the where. Is it a bottom up kind of situation where the team is reluctant and therefore the leadership as well, or is leadership just not allocating enough resources to it? Yeah, maybe share with us from your experience.
So I think maybe both. If I'll touch what Pieter mentioned, that they're buried into work, that they don't have enough time to try using AI tools. So if it won't, if this change to be AI ready won't come from the management level, from the CFO, who will decide that this is a priority for his team, it won't happen. But at the same time, we have the treasurer itself. So if there is a driven treasurer that saying, okay, that's enough. I can do this manual process every week, every day. I want a new tool. And this is something that I hear on a daily basis. Like, and when I meet those treasurers that just saying, thank you for saving me and bring me this visibility into my day-to-day work. So again, I think it's both ways. I think it could be either from the management or from the treasurer itself.
Yeah,
If
Pieter,
I
do you
step in
have
already,
anything to
yeah.
add on that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is all. I did some thinking. I changed my mind over time. I do think this is a leadership topic, and I also want to. I go beyond what Eyal says, because it's not only about budget and time. It is about making essential decisions, taking a step back about your treasury process and think about, okay, what is actually needed from us, from liquidity, what's the dream, and if we want to include, for instance, working capital management, or if we want to do strategic investment making, how would the dream then look like? What is already possible? And we all know in this session, AI can do so much more than we allow it to do. So I think leadership should start the whole process and say, okay, we will have to do a full redesign of our perhaps full organization, but let's start with treasury, design how we want this to move, and directly after plot who do we have in our team, what skills are available, how do we reskill, upskill people, who do we have to bring in extra, and then design for the future instead of making a okay process quicker. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do that if it's low-hanging fruit, but I think this is first a leadership topic, and if you feel yourself at the bottom of the food chain in a very operational job, that does not mean that you're not allowed to do anything. There's a lot you can do, but I think leadership has to step in and to connect their strategy to what's possible now, because there's so much possible, there's so much opportunities out there. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for that. And let's move on to our next question that I think a lot of our viewers today are anxious about the future of the treasury profession in itself. What is it going to look like in the day after AI? Pieter, I will send this one back to you. Do you think the treasury profession is at risk? And what advice would you give to treasurers and to finance teams who are looking to advance themselves professionally today?
Yeah, I think they have a great opportunity and at the same time a big risk. What I mentioned before, I think accounting and controlling and FP&A are not sitting still. I think they can eat part of what Treasury is doing, unless Treasury in time steps forward and shows their added value and makes their move and claims the stage. So you have to continue your strategic thinking on many levels, and to a certain aspect that also applies to the whole service provider world. So I'm a recruiter in corporate treasury. I also have to think about, okay, what does this mean for my company? And if I, for instance, project it on Panax, I think you're doing great stuff, helping people ahead. At the same time, if SAP and Oracle decides to put all their resources on this topic, also you might think, okay, where are we going? So I do think the whole agility, the nimbleness, the thinking on your feet used to be a plus, something that sets you apart. With now so much efficiency can be gained from just a few. I think if you don't think on your feet, then you stand a chance to be out. That's dark, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that what used to be a nice to have, a nice extra, is now the standard, is the new bar in treasury, to always be on your feet, to always ask questions, and to always think about the next step.
Exactly. You have to remain relevant.
Eyal, what would you advise the beginner treasurer to invest in today to promise his success in treasury?
Yeah, if Peter said the bar is rising, I think the bar indeed is rising because treasury teams are now being expected to deliver, I think, a better and different output. They're being now asked a different questions than before. So I think the skills that they need to build right now is what we said along this session is better thinking about how to query the data because now they have the option to do it, and I think that's the main skill: what to ask, how to ask, and to be able to do this shift.
Okay, last question for this discussion about, we talked about the dream of every treasurer and every team and the end goal. But what does it really look like, Eyal? Maybe if you could bring in some examples from teams that you've been following them from the start of implementation to the end of it. What is different and what does it look like?
Yeah, so I think now they have the options to ask the questions they always wanted, or to answer their CFO questions in seconds, in minutes. So some of these questions are, as I mentioned before, I think the planning ahead and to be able to bring better value and ROI for a day-to-day processes. So some of those is, let's say, a better understanding of their FX exposure, for an example, which now takes lots of time to build, to understand, and now it's just one prompt. Tell me what would be my euro exposure if X and Y will happen, and maybe another example is better planning of capital efficiency. What will happen if in the next week my term deposits will expire? What should I do with the funds? Should I fund different entities? Should I reinvest? What would be the interest that I could get, and so on? If those questions were previously took days, hours to prepare, now it's a matter of minutes.
Pieter, anything to add here?
I think treasury content-wise, I cannot add to that, but we should not forget that there will always be a bigger goal. So we should accept that improvement and success is a moving target. So let's not focus on the ideal situation and then decide here we are, because when we're there, we're pretty sure that we have to change. So I think the mindset of continuous curiosity and innovation is unavoidable, and let's not think there's a holy grail called success. We tick a box, there's success, and now we are in heaven. It doesn't work that way. So I think we should think along the way value. I like the value component of Eyal mode. How can we add more value to? It's a bit philosophical. Sorry.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because we talked about how AI makes our work sometimes faster and getting us to the outputs in a faster way. But what you're saying here is that success is also moving fast, is also changing. So maybe success is not agility and quickly getting to the numbers, but it's also quickly adjusting to what AI is allowing us to do, and to be quick about changing our mindset to meet these new expectations. Okay, we actually have a few questions that some of our viewers here have sent to us before doing registration. So let's jump right into them. Pieter, I think this one is for you. The first question is, when I hire my next finance person, what should I be looking for? Should AI fluency be a formal part of the job requirement? We touched this a little bit, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the actual job description itself. You know, when you see it on LinkedIn or when you post it to your company website.
I would say AI literacy a plus, curiosity and agility a must. That would be my answer.
Okay, Eyal, when let's maybe take a spin on this question and maybe ask you when a team welcomes a finance team or a treasury team welcomes a new member, what actually makes them better from day one? That is not an acquired skill on the job, something that they already bring in with them.
I think maybe it applies to all positions, but drive, hunger, motivation, and to think every day, how can I be better with the tools that I have?
Okay, moving on to the next question. Pieter, how do you see the treasurer roles changing over the next 3 years, and what should I be doing today to stay relevant?
I think the expectations will go up, the teams will be smaller, where in the early days people with a vocational education would be able to do the job or part of the treasury function. They will disappear. And I think the two aspects people can work on, there will be formal AI qualifications or skills you can learn, certificates or anything like that. So if they're out there, do. And in the meantime, start working on the topic. So don't wait. I was just talking to the group treasurer of a listed firm in Germany, and he said people block projects because it's only 97%, not 100. They block it for the 3. That would be the worst. So in your career, just create your accounts, start making stuff. Of course, don't do anything dangerous like transferring funds through ChatGPT, but start. I think start. That's the main question or assignment.
Yeah, start and follow through, right? Don't give up when things get a little messy, and actually put in the work to get the output you wish to see, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and last question about, we talked about the start. You said just now to start somewhere, right? So, Eyal, maybe an advice for teams who have been talking about AI implementation for so long and they don't know where to begin. It sounds too intimidating. Where do they start?
As Pieter said, just start. Take one workflow that you're doing today and try to think of how I can do the same workflow with an AI, maybe to, as we said, to rethink about the process. Start there, see the results, and apply to all of your other workflows.
Okay, so that leads us to conclude our session today, and time really flew by, for me at least. So before we wrap things up, Pieter, Eyal, if you could give one practical takeaway for our viewers to leave this session with today and take to their team or take to themselves to make a change with AI. Pieter.
Oh wow, I had 3. Now I have to choose.
Okay. So we'll take them all. We'll take them all.
Now, I think quickly following up on the example, perfection is the enemy of good. So don't wait for perfection. The other one would be treat your AI like you would do a TMS selection. First think what you need and don't be wowed by features, because there are so many features that you will decide, okay, this is great, I want to have it, and then you're on and you're starting the whole process, and 4 months in you think, okay, why did I choose this? Because I needed something else. So treat it like your TMS, think about what you need. And two last total cliches, whether you think you can or you cannot, you're always right. So if you decide you're not good for AI, you will not be good for AI, and AI will not take your job. The person better at AI will. And these cliches are total cliches, but very true, I think.
Eyal, what is your main takeaway?
I would suggest stop producing numbers, start acting on the numbers. Start today. Start.
Okay, so with this prompt encouragement for all of you to start and play around with AI and see what value it can bring to you and to your team, I would like to thank you all for joining. Thank you, Pieter and Eyal, for this really great, open, honest, ground level conversation that we really wanted to have. So I really appreciate both of you taking the time to sit down with us today. And thank you to everybody who joined. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, we will be sharing this recording with you later today. And if you want to continue the conversation, we at Panax are more than happy to chat about everything treasury, finance, and AI. We will leave a link in the chat to contact us, and we are very happy to pick up where we just left off. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. We'll see you next time.